Hi, hello, hello, hello. Um, um, hello. Welcome to another episode of the Bold Conversation with Stephen Ogutobo this great Sunday, live from there from the Baltimore City of the United States of America. And I have with me some of my esteemed guests. These are people I've looked up to over the years in terms of they are change makers that I've looked up to over the years in person of Doctor in View. You know, he has been a top-notch, never giving up individual that I've known for rugged in a sense from the years that I know him. Which with a passion for young people and involvement in politics, especially governance. He's a very passionate person in terms of governance, and he was once contested for different position. And you know the way politics is in Nigeria. You know it's who is your godfather, and he's of his great philosophy of. We can do it without godfatherism, and I'm so happy and so glad to have him here this great afternoon. Thank you so much, Doctor in View, Dr. Waidi Gbenro, all the way from reaching us for all the way from Germany. And I also have my esteemed friend, my very good friend, brother, in person of Dari Akinlaja. Dari Akinlaja, and I also have a renowned change maker who has also been involved in the front space of equipping, reshaping, and the educational system. And for now, Dari is into quite a number of things, and in terms of helping and rebuilding and reshaping systems. I'd like to say that it's my pleasure in having Dari Akinlaja in the house this great afternoon. Dari, welcome.
Thank you.
Thank you
Good
so
to be
much, my
here.
esteemed guest, for joining us this great afternoon. Well, we are having this conversation on governance,
Thank you. Good to be
and
here.
I am going to ask a question, a direct question to both of you. I'm going to start with Dari. What is governance to you? What's your ideal definition of governance? Forget about government textbook. You know, what is your own ideal definition of governance with your own practice and looking at African governance practice? What is your with your experience? You know, when you say right TV about your involvement in governance, it's not by holding a position in the House of Reps, but
Yeah.
people who have been involved in the grassroots politics in terms of vying for a position. And because of Baba Sokwe, yeah, you know, maybe you would have become a governor by now. So, what exactly do you think, with the right mindset of going into politics, what's your definition of of governance? Maybe you would have become
All right. Thank you very much, Stephen. I think it's first of all important that we understand that governance is not just a word that is only used for political office in the sense of it. There's something called corporate governance. Corporate governance is what is used in corporate sector or companies or not for profit or around the world. There's something called corporate governance. So the word governance literally, if you are going to use another word, you will use the word as maybe an institution, a sort of institution that governs how a people act, how they behave, the standards, the system, how they come together to exist, how they come together to live and to stay together, and how they intend to be led, for lack of use of a word, to be led. Okay, so the idea of this
Darren,
government, yeah, yeah.
hold your thoughts there. I guess we're getting a feedback noise. Is it from your TV or from?
No, so I think maybe I just want to be sure that hope you don't have, because you are streaming live. Hope you don't have the live streaming on your
Dr.
laptop.
Wade, I hope it's not from your side.
So I think maybe I just want to be sure that hope you don't have, because you are streaming live. Hope you don't have
No, we're getting feedback. We're
on
getting
your
feedback.
laptop.
Can we mute our mics if we're not talking? Okay, I guess it's coming from Mr. White. Oh, Darry, you have
Okay,
your thing.
it's coming from Dr. Waidi. Yeah, so it's important we look at it in that light. Governance is leadership. Governance is how you lead a group of people. That's what governance is. How people come together, how they come to exist, how they come to stay together. And if you look at governance in that term, or with that simple term, you would understand that you can even have what I call personal governance. How you intend to lead your life, how you intend to run your life, your set standard, your the procedures, the system you have put in place for how you run your life, how your life is designed to work. Okay, so that's just what governance is. So if you then bring it to the conversation we're having today with its specifics, okay, governance is simply the kind of system, or will I say institution, that leads, directs, and determine how we people live. So that's in its basic form is what I think governance is. So I'll allow the uh, doctor in view to give me academia to 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 help us buttress the fact more and have better understanding. Thank you, Stevie.
Yeah, thank you.
Dr. Waidi Gbenro, I'm going to take
Yeah,
from another shift from you. And
yeah.
you've been of a school of thought in terms
Mm-hmm,
of, I know you have a lot of school of thought in
mm-hmm,
terms of it's not by PDP, it's not by APC, it's
mm-hmm,
not by NCP,
mm-hmm,
it's
mm-hmm,
by, and I remember that you joined a rugged party those years.
mm-hmm.
And what's your worldview? Because you would have a worldview and I see quite a number of our friends and colleagues who are very passionate about politics today
Mhm,
and
mhm.
who are very passionate about governance.
Yeah.
So, joining the most populous parties that we find, if you don't join the most populous parties, you
Mhm.
think that you cannot win. What
Okay.
exactly is your drive? One, I want to get your own overview. What's your definition of governance
Mhm.
with your experience and your background in government?
Okay.
Been practicing trying to get into the position of government over the years,
Mhm.
and it's not all about you couldn't get those positions. So, but you tried. It's not all about matter of you win,
Okay. If
but
you if
giving it
you
try. So, what's your definition? What I want you to just give us a
like
word of view
like like
from your
like that
perspective.
like that is said, let's start with what is governance in itself before we come back to reality to the reality. Governance is those institutions, those processes, those elements put in place to ensure that a group of people, it could be a corporate body like Dari said, but here we're talking about a country. It's those kind of institutions, those processes, those offices, positions that are put in place so to ensure that a country is governed properly and efficiently. That is what governance is all about. The people, the institutions, and all the structures that are put in place, and also the processes that makes up governance. Then when you talk about governance, you now talk about two types of governance. You talk about good governance and bad governance. So when you say good governance, you're talking of all the elements are there. You're talking of open democracy, the rule of law. You're talking of due processes. You're talking of high morals, transparency, responsibility, proactivity, and so on and so forth. That is when you have good governance. And the other part of it is when the leaders are there for their pockets, that is sycophancy. That is when you have bad governance, like we have in many places in Africa. Now to the practical definition of governance as we have it in Nigeria. Governance itself, I would say, is just like a crop of people who have come together to hold the country on the jungular and are ruling in their own interest. It is called an oligarchy. What you have is not government per se or governance per se. It's an oligarchy, which is government of a few people for a few people. So I think that's the definition you give for in Nigeria. But if you now come to my experience in politics in Nigeria, I think on hindsight, I would say that many of us, we naively join politics and think that, okay, our moral standard, our high ethics, and all the likes, because we have good intentions, that would make people just vote for us. But I think the reality is that Politics in itself, it's a very big game. And somebody said, and it's very interesting, that if you must join politics, you must be able to sit down with people who have been part of that system, become part of that system, build your own structure over a point of time, get your loyalists. Let me give you an example. In Ebute Meta, where I first contested for council under NCP, I campaigned to people, and in presence of everybody will tell me, I will vote for you, I will vote for you, I will vote for you. That is very good. That is a good way to go. That's a good way to go. But do you know that they will come to me privately and tell me, Baba, I cannot vote for you, not because I don't like you. It's because this government is giving me some stipend. If I vote for you, there's no guarantee that you give me the same stipend, or that stipend will get lost. Now, I will give you one interesting question. Abegi Mangoro in the Ebute Meta, to be precise, Tapa Street. I went to campaign there to this older set of men, and they asked me two questions, very ridiculous questions. The first question was that, what is your religion? I said I wouldn't give them an answer. Number two, they said, look at these kiosks. They are all on the gutter. The place is so dirty. What will you do when you become councillor? I said there must be an arrangement for those kiosks to be there now, and the government is not removing those kiosks. When we come, we try to look at what kind of arrangement that is on ground and so on and so forth. But do you know that question was a kind of trap question? These people, their wives were the owner of these kiosks that were on the gutters in those areas. They were only trying to find out whether I was going to say I'm going to remove them so that they will not vote for me. So, at the end of the day, I think the reality is that definition of politics is radically different with what is on ground. And for you to deal with what is on ground, you have to be pragmatic. And you said something about our colleagues joining Popular Party. I am not against that. Because one of the things that I always say is that young people should get a critical mass into this party and take over these parties. If you stay, I have stayed in very parties, NCP and the other likes, and everything that only happen is that you use your effort, you use your money, and nothing comes out of it. But if one has put his energy maybe in the bigger parties, you know your mind, you know your conscience, you could actually have won a position. And one thing I have come to realize in the past years is that no matter what good intention you have, governmental power, governmental resources is the best way to kind of use it to the advantage of much people than what we've been doing over the years.
All right. I'm going to ask a question, this is a very fundamental question that comes up when we want to talk about youth involvement in governance. And I know some politicians are watching us today, and some young aspiring politicians are also watching. The place of godfatherism, and this is the first question that comes up when any young person try to say, yes, I have interest in politics. And the next question they will ask you, who exactly is your godfather? Do you think it's an ideal protocol, or is a protocol to be breached if you're going to politics with good intention, with good mindset? You just finished from Harvard School of Polit Governance, and you went for all the UN training on governance, and you feel like you're on fire, you can speak English, and you know all the economic tricks and economic
Terminologies.
principles of setting up a nation economy. Do you think this can help, and this can reshape the Nigerian political, the governance space? Dari, what's your opinion about this?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you clearly.
So, like my wonderful brother mentioned, he used a very important word that young people must begin to consider before we even have conversations. And the word was pragmatic. I think we live in the bubble of our restlessness. Therefore, it blurs our perspectives to how we really intend to create change. Now, if you study even international politics, geopolitics, you study what happens around the world, two things happen. You must have a people who will point you out, and you must have a system that must back you up. You see, we must understand that. Now, in this part of the world, let me tell you, sir, the difference between Africa and the rest of the world is that people don't want to push people forward and get off the scene. In everywhere in the world, people are recommended. It's a universal principle. It's not just politics. People are recommended. People are pointed out. People are shown the way. People are mentored. That's where the idea of mentor protege came out from. It's from the Roman system, of mentoring young people, So it's not, there's nothing wrong in that idea. The challenge is that Africans don't know how to leave the scene. That's just the problem. It's a black mentality. We don't know how to let go. So the challenge is not with the concept. Africa did not invent that concept. If you check the Bible, you check the Quran, you talk to atheists, there is always that mentor protege system. It is everywhere in the world. What we must learn is how to use this system to begin to create change. You see somebody who can get the job done, but you define loyalty as, I will not be able to talk to him again once he gets there. So you put somebody who you know cannot perform as much as that person can perform, but because he's subservient to you. Whether we like it or not, there will always be people at the forefront of every conversation. As I speak to you now in the music industry in Nigeria, there are people who are in front. You call Olamide, you call Whiskey, you call the name, they are already in front. So whether you like it or not, they are the godfather, in quote, of music. Okay? So what they are now doing is to say to themselves, you know what, we are going to go one day. We don't have the strength to occupy this. Let's see how much people we can help to do the things we are able to do. The truth is, you will get some right and you will miss some. You cannot say because you want to control the odds, you then begin to not be, so the young people should know that godfatherism in itself, and that's why they use the word godfatherism. We have painted it wrong. And listen to this. I think we need to be careful on the continent of Africa. Let me tell you what we need to be careful about. I think words are used to control our perspectives. These same things happen in the international world, but you will never see them use the word godfatherism. They will use more interesting words like mentor, he worked with, he served under. And those are words used. But when it comes on the continent, because of our behavioral pattern, it is called godfatherism. Now, where did the word godfather come from? It's from the mafia. So you can understand how that word has affected our perspectives of the concept is universal. It cannot change. It is how we define it that matters. Listen, I'm into a field now, and my brother is there, and he's a PhD. And as my brother is there, there are professors who have been in his field. If you want to narrate that, you say they are his godfathers. They are his godfathers enough. Sorry.
Let me take it from you. You see, yeah. I was doing my PhD and I was completely lost. It was professors, very young professors, just 40 years old people, professors who are far junior. They are junior to me. I'm a little bit older than they do. It is these young people who are my mentor.
They're your godfather.
Now,
just kidding.
The milestone I have made in that short time, I would not have made if these people who are a little bit younger than I do have not put me right, give me the right connections, tell people, because when these people see them, they trust them. And when they say, okay, this guy is under me, I also trust his judgment. It makes everybody's life a little bit easier. So under TEF, Tony Elumelu Foundation program, I am a mentor. I am a coach. And Taking it global, if Stephen remember those times, I was also a mentor under Taking It Global for a lot of people. From one person was from Uganda, one person is from, I think, Tanzania. These people are grown-up people now who have their own big organizations. Will you call me godfather to those people? I just helped create a pathway for them to get to where they were going. And the same thing somebody is doing to me now, maybe like some 10, 15 years later. So do you call that godfathering? That brings me back to what you were saying. I think young people, we need to put a lot of things in perspective. And that lot of things that we have to put in perspective is that I remember going into politics and wanting to become a councillor. I just jumped there thinking that, oh, I would win the election. But the rude awakening for me was that even if I have people who like me, do I have the structure to win an election? It is not easy. It is not easy to get a structure that will win an election. It entails money. Whether they say election is free, you will pay your agents, you will do logistics, you will get people to canvass people for you on election day. You will need to talk. If you talk to individual people, you will not get bulk votes. You have to even talk to people, leaders in communities, and say, hey, trust me. I think what we seem to miss here is that politics is a game of trust. And if you have not held a political position before, nobody will trust your judgment. Politics is not like business. You cannot ensure to fail. You cannot use it as you cannot say you want to let him fail first. He will learn from his mistake. You are going to play with people's lives. You're going to be playing with people's life when they allow you to make a mistake. So you have to learn. My own take is that local government are no longer functioning. Local government should be training ground for young people, becoming councillors, becoming local government chairman, becoming what they call supers. That will be a training ground for young people to kind of test the ground, get their loyalty, and people can actually see that, this guy can do it. We can give him a bigger position. Maybe from there you move to State House of Assembly. From there you can go up the ladder. You can become something else. But because this particular arm of government have been rendered redundant, there's no training ground for young people. And we seem to be able to, like we said, there is this power. If you look at Nigeria, you look at the demography, there's a lot of young people, so that we don't miss what we're trying to discuss. Young people are, I think, like almost 60 to 70%, that is 25 and under. How do we organize our political system, our governance structure, so that these people can join politics early and learn through the ranks? And before people become 25, 35, 45, they're already in the system. And those who want to stick to that system, they already know where they can get to and how they can get there. But you cannot stay in your room and just jump one morning and go and vote and go and contest in an election. And the next morning you say they rigged the election. You do not have a structure to win.
So what are your top nuggets? What are your top nuggets for young aspirants? And now I hosted a show some few weeks back, and where I brought in a young lady who is aspiring for presidential role, and I see the burning passion in her.
Yeah.
And at the back of my mind, it's just like I have someone who aspired. You know him very well. Who aspired, who was vying for the role of president. In one of those parties. And before I could open my eyes and close my eyes, I open my eyes and close my eyes. He's a senior special advisor to a governor. So, as a means of compensation, what are the 5 nuggets that you think are the takeaway key principle if you're supposed to speak to young aspirants across Nigeria right now? Because whether we like it or not, young people are gearing up towards this election. And we saw what happened. Let me bring you back to what happened during the NSAS protest. For some of you who are joining us live, you can call us on the number that will be showing on your screen, and you can call us live and join us on the show. You can call us on the number showing on the screen right now, and or probably drop your comments or questions in the chat box. We really want some questions to be fired to these two gentlemen. I need your questions, please, and or probably if you want to call live, you can call on the number showing on your screen. And you saw what happened during the NSAS protest. They thought it was a joke. And I have some friends in government portal and quarters who are telling me, "Oh, Tobati rain," meaning if you guys are tired, you will go home. But when they saw the ruggedness and they saw the unending ruggedness in these young people, and they have to use their own trick in terms of dispatching them to go back home. Do you think the same energy that was used for NSAS could be deployed into the 2020? Is it 2023 election? Come 2023 election, they were bribed. Some people didn't compromise their stand, and that was when I gave it up to young people in Nigeria. Do you think this election is still going to open up to that vibes or to that energy that we found at the Lekki tollgate to be deployed in the 2023 election?
Okay, so who goes first?
Well, Darren, go first, and then
okay. So I like the way he always sums it up. So let me just go. Then I like the way he encapsulates it all. So Stephen, I'm a student of sociology, and I'm going to tell you straightforward that the elections cannot be like the Lekki toll gate, and I'll explain what I mean. The uniformity around the Lekki toll gate had no bias around political affiliations. It was a group of people who had the trigger point. The trigger point being the police brutality. And there was hardly anybody, in spite of your political affiliation, who did not have an experience with police brutality. That was why he was able to catch the speedy cut. The reason why you might not have election like that is because we will not have a trigger point. Until we can effectively find a trigger point to be able to rally people around, that is when you can find that same mass action. The truth is, you cannot use age as a bullying factor for power. I keep saying that. Age is not a trigger. It's not enough. It's not enough of what's the word? It's not enough force or enough tool for exchange. It's not sufficient. Okay, because we have old people who are doing brilliantly well, and we have young people who have messed things up. So you see, this age discussion will really not fly with our conversation. Okay. But I feel we need more young people in the system, okay? Freshness of idea, freshness of breath, freshness of perspective, doggedness and drive. But the way we push our narrative and our conversations needs to change. The hinge upon which the trigger, I have mentioned the trigger point a lot, because that's how mass action is driven. That's how conversations go. Okay, that's how revolutions occur. We must find a central trigger point. Stevie, let me give you an example. I have been looking for a time where all young people will come together and say we want restructuring, for instance. We need to pick a trigger. We need to pick. See, elections is not, because by the time you go into the election circle, you are already the people who hold this game have divided our election cycle around certain things that we will not be able to unite anymore around the common cause. So we must find that unifying factor, and the unifying factor must not be electioneering in mindset. It must be, how do we adjust how we live as a people? When we start from that and begin to push that in, that's why I feel that what this government succeeded in doing was to deaden the voice of civil society. It was one of the greatest strategies they did that has affected our ability to hold government accountable, because civil society is meant to be non-partisan. They are the voice around these socio-cultural things I'm talking about. They are the ones that create this trigger point for what I'm talking about. So 5 things, like you said. First of all, we must understand our direction. Second of all, we must even know what we are doing. I say to people, the most ignorant conversations take place at newspaper stands. The next place, the most ignorant conversations takes place are when young people gather and they think they know what they are saying. That's why these men just look at us and laugh. It's obvious we don't have enough information when we have our conversations. Thirdly, we must pay attention to capacity building. We must pay attention to capacity building. Capacity building, not in the degrees you have, but get your hands dirty, enter into the funnel, go abroad if you need to go abroad and study how systems work, blow there or do something, but capacity is important. Fourthly, you must learn the principle of alignment. I remember this very great line from Hercules. It says, empires are built by alliances. Young people must understand the power of alliances. If you want to build anything formidable, you must understand alliances. Finally, you must understand the principle of personal responsibility. I've seen a generation where people who have not learned to lead themselves and pay attention to their immediate environment want to be given bigger positions, because in their consciousness, position is all it takes to create influence. I think it takes deeper things than conversations. Thank you.
Mr. White, you have the floor right now.
That's serious. Okay, I would say, how do we, for this election that is coming 2023, I have to be honest, it's just too close for any meaningful change or radical change to come up. Preparing for an election is not a 1-year business, neither is it a 2 or 3 years business. You have to gather your base. And if I'm going to say a trigger point for young people, one of the main trigger points would be the fact that a consensus on the fact that we don't like the situation on ground. If everybody can understand that, okay, the system is not working the way we want, things are not the way we are, it can lead to a situation of a critical mass saying, okay, our suffer don't reach, or our suffer don't do. And if our suffer don't do, what is the way forward? What we are currently doing is that we have not really sat down and said, okay, we have a problem, and what are the real problems? If we can define what these problems are, that would be like a meeting point for everybody, where we can now move forward and say, okay, since these are the problems, can we push people forward, or can we groom people that can now move on, bearing this in mind? Maybe not this year, maybe this not this time, maybe some other time. But Stephen, let me call your attention. I'm not going to mention name. There are young people, even close to you, who have used the method I just said, that I just said, they're being pragmatic. And see me, I doff my heart for one of those guys, because he planned all these things. And like we say in Pidgin English, like play, he entered into the system. And like play, he is moving up the ladder. I will not be surprised if he's saying he wants to become president of Nigeria before he becomes 40. So, these are the things we are talking about. Understand. Somebody said something which I wrote down some moments ago. He said, I hope I can find it. Somebody said something which I wrote down. He said, politics is not as bad as people think it is. You have to play it right. You first need to understand the political group that you want to join. And that in English is called palace politics. Now, what we did, or what I did, and some people close to me did for over 15 years, was that we felt we were different, we joined other parties, or we formed other parties to fight the main parties. And what we always ended up doing was that became frustrated and disenchanted at the end of the day. But the lessons learned from there were that we never had a structure. And without a structure, you cannot move up the forward. And if you don't have your own structure, another best way to do is to steal a structure or get into a structure. If young people, let's take Lagos mainland, for example. You don't even need 500 young people. You just need about 50 young people to join parties some of the main parties in mainland, things will change. Things will start changing, because if you have that critical mass, I think there was some time backward in mainland, we did a calculation of the amount of politicians that are in mainland. Stephen, that is very funny. We did a roll call that these people that are even making our life miserable, we want to know how many are they. And did you know that when we calculated those that are core politicians and those that are going to political meetings, we calculated they were less than 1,000 people. And these are the people that were voting in delegate elections, voting in everything to determine our own fate. Now look at it, that at each ward meeting, there are never more than 30 or 40. Then young people like 10 in each ward join those ward meetings or political parties. Then we turn those parties upside down, which is number one. If they want to be part of the delegate, because they have been able to get that number of people into ward meetings, they can actually get their own delegates that will represent them in delegate elections or in nominating political parties nominees. So at the end of the day, like I said, we have to be pragmatic. We have to join political parties. We have to go to party meetings. You cannot stay in your room and win elections, or on Twitter and win elections. When you go on election day, it is people who are older than 60, 50 years that are voting most of the time. Young people are always playing football. You must go to party meetings. So let me take it one after the other. Number one, to create a critical mass or a trigger point, like Dari said, we need to define what are the problems that are on ground that we really want to change. The burning problem that must change. That's number one. What are the problems? Number two, we gather a critical mass around this problem and use that as a spearheading machine for us to move forward. Number three, don't shy away from the ruling parties or the bigger parties. In America, there are more than 2 parties, but we only hear of 2 political parties. In the UK, there are more than 2 political parties. We only hear of 2 political parties. So, if you really want to make an impact, you can join any other party, but also join the ruling party. Shake the party. That's a critical mass of young people. Join those parties and turn things upside down. Vote for their likes, young people like them. I'm telling you, if they can do that, but it's not a day's journey. You can start that now. It might be in 4 years or in 8 years or even 10 years or 20 years that you start getting the result. Join these parties and go to meetings and stop thinking that you can wish political position, or you can just think because you are good, political position will come and sit on your lap. It doesn't work that way. So these are some of the things that I think in my mind. People must be realistic and know that positions need you to train. People need you to do the sacrifices for you to get there.
So, looking at sacrifice, the portals are open for PVC right now, and now we have a lot of Twitter warriors. I call them Twitter warriors. They make noise on Clubhouse. I'm so amazed the way young people make noise and they can analyze Babangida regime. They're very good in, they don't stand at newspaper stand again. You see them on Clubhouse and they can give you all the analysis in terms of politics from Babangida age. They can even give you the history of Babangida, how he entered, who got the form for him, into the military. But being very proactive in terms of taking steps. So the first measure is encouraging young people to go out there and get their PVC right now. But we know the role of the National Orientation Agency is to create more awareness about, encouraging the people, which is the population of the major mass of the population of Nigerians, to go out there and get their PVC. So, but young people tell you, I'm being very discouraged. ASU is on strike. There is no fuel. There is no electricity. There's no quality job. And the most annoying part of this thing, the old drive, is that we celebrate nonsense in this part of our world as Nigerians. We saw the show of shame that happened between at the inauguration, at the governorship inauguration. The show of shame between the wife of the ex-governor and the current governor, and it's like a trend. And I still saw the woman, out there, and this happened as a trend everywhere. How do young people are tired. how do we encourage these young people? And this government will tell you, these people in government will tell you, whether you like it or not, we're going to win because we have you in power. We have your hands in power. I've worked with different politicians and I know what they say and I know how they even make jest of the people. So what exactly is the kind of orientation we need to give to our people right now? Because where we come and give them agege bread. I've seen governors sharing bread on the street, and they use this to buy their power every time. 5,000, 2,000, 3,000. We see them in the Butemita, we see them everywhere. What exactly is the sort of orientation? And we knowing the fact that there is corruption. And I said there's not corruption, sorry. There is poverty in the land. We need to do differently in terms of getting the attentions of our people.
Okay, so can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
So I think it's important we are clear. Being a development consultant and a student of systems, I'm beginning to understand why we have misinterpreted a lot of things over the years. That's myself including. And that's because we give the wrong definitions to things. Now, once we do not interpret the problem correctly, which is what design thinking has helped us do now, is if you don't interpret the problem correctly, you will continue assuming what the solutions are. Now, the politicians we are fighting understand that Nigeria is deliberately designed. You see, we keep looking at the offshoots and not forget to understand that it is a design. And the men who control the world understand that all we need to do is to put in a design. Once there is a design, no matter how good your intentions are, you must be subservient to a design. So the people who want to institutionalize their thoughts or their concepts always look to building it into the design. What does all this grammar mean? People must assume that, you see, one of the things young people must also understand is that politicians are not stupid. You see, we always assume that because they're politicians, a lot of them were first-class students in their undergraduate days. A lot of them were first-class master's degree holders and top PhD people in their undergraduate days. Because they are playing politics in Nigeria, you just assume that all of them are stupid. But they are super intelligent, sir. If they are not, they have people who are intelligent who are thinking for them. And Nigeria, as it is today, is a sociological construct. Who are the people that vote? These guys do polls. Stephen, are you aware they don't share bread in Anambra State? In not all local governments. They don't share bread in places like Enugu State. When they come to Lagos, they will share because you and I speak too much English. We sit in our estates and don't come out. So everything is based on a design. We must first understand that. When people ask me what is my confidence in the growth of our political system, I say never before. Now, we might talk about the disadvantages of Twitter. But the advantage of Twitter is that people are even talking. At least we are even talking. Before, nobody even had an idea of the way of things that were happening. But at least there's even now talk. It's a good place to start. Because many years ago, a lot of people used to assume they knew how things worked. For instance, there is an electoral act that has just been passed. How many young people even know what that electoral act means? How many young people know what it means to sponsor a bill or to lobby a bill in the Senate? So the intellectual work, they know we don't pay attention to it, Stephen. And this challenge starts from university days, where people don't do assignment or project, they copy it. So the intellectual capacity of the average young Nigerian is at nearly zero. So tell me, a politician, and take note, we are dealing with a generation that had free education, so a large chunk of them are educated. And in their time, education was education, sir. So you can see that we are fighting a design. So this is my point. Stephen, sharing bread and rice is not going to change anytime soon. The only time it will change is if those who are... Let me give you an instance. You see, we only have Nigeria. Look at America, for instance, during the election cycle. America, how does election work? Look for a way to banter. Look for a way to cast aspersions on your fellow candidates. The Hispanics, you are marketing something different to them. The blacks, you are marketing something different to them. The white. So everywhere in the world, there is that social construct that determines how you play the politics. We must get that. So in Nigeria, for the kind of politicking to change, Stephen, or else none of us who have good heart will win anything. Because you will go there and you will still share bread and rice. Because even if you don't intend to, they will force you to. So what we must start to do is, how do we begin to change the social construct? Very important. So the conversations need to change from just electioneering, like Mr. Amai said, from just electioneering to the process that leads to a better society. Let's even start talking about a better society. What will it take? Where do we start from? Oh, let's get into political parties. Oh, let more young people go and collect. Let more young people go into this thing. Let more people get. We need to change the social construct. Our design needs to change. Okay. Now, this is a very sensitive example, but look at governments that, let me not say west or east, but look at governments that are overthrown or that other countries overthrow. The first thing they do is to change the social construct of the people. That's why communist governments prevent media and things that will affect the social construct of their people, because they know that once the social construct is adjusted, it is easy to sell an idea. Let me allow Mr. Hawaii to continue.
I will take on Adenipekun, who asked a question. He said, does it mean that we, the youth, have left politics in the hands of a few morons, just the way we threw our rights out of the window for instant gratification? What I would say is that, like I said in the beginning, and Dari also agreed with me, we have to first define what the problem is. And if you don't get a definition of the problem right, every other thing you are going to miss the ball. Now, I continue to tell anybody who care to listen that our problem, we don't have a government problem. Government is just symptomatic of the problem in the society. Now, since 1960, the Yoruba people will say, government is. If you say the government in 1960 was bad, the one in 1960 was worse. If you say the government in 1967 was bad, the one in 1979 was worse. If you say Obasanjo was not nice, the one after him you say it was bad. So the question is, when we now talk about government, it means that we are really missing what the problem is. In my own opinion, it is me and you. It will be difficult for us to become governor or president tomorrow. It is the elites who become it's one person out of the elites who will always become the leader of the country the next time. The question now is that What kind of caliber of elite do we have? What kind of morals do they have? What kind of, I don't know, outlook to the country and to the people do they have? Now, we are tomorrow morning, whether you like it or not, there will be somebody on. If we go and get our PVC today, like I've always voted since the middle of the 90s or early 90s. The question is, it is the same set of people that you say you don't want that will end up on the ballot box. So with your PVC, you are still going to vote for the same set of people that you say they are not good. So we have to start from the scratch. Define your problem. Our problem is that the people that are getting into that position, or the elites, the set of elites that are getting there, are not people who are working in our interests. That is first set of the problem. How do we get the kind of elites that are thinking, that are people-oriented, that are good governance-oriented, that are responsive, pragmatic, and have the interests of the people at heart? How do we get them to join politics? How do we get them to actually even sit in an election and back them up to get to this position? Now, let me give you some of my own way that I think we can work around this. One, we should get away from the narratives that politics is a dirty game. This is one of the things that is scaring young people away from politics. We should stop scaring young people away from politics. Now, people like myself and other people in my area are always running away from politics. It is the people around me who did not go to school, the so-called bus conductors, the so-called Gbenros, that are going to political party meeting every week and every week. They become party chairman. They become councillors. They become supers. So at the end of the day, you leave politics to some people who did not go to school. Ladoja said something sometime in Oyo State. I was at a gathering at Yagoku, and he said something. He said, you people said our governor is a thug. It is because you who are not thug refuse to join political parties and contest for election. That is why you end up with a thug as your governor. So he must, even though I didn't like the way he said it, but that was the reality. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. We can hear you loud and clear.
Okay. So the reality of the fact is that we need to tell ourselves that politics is not a dirty game. The people that are there are not spirits. They are human beings like me and you. We should join politics. And winning election is not a day's game. You have to be there for the long run. It's a learning process. You just continue to learn. So number one, I would talk that there should be a political socialization. Mr. Dare said something. He said civil society have been crushed. Civil society, that has always been one of these hub of kind of getting people reoriented back to things. For example, political socialization will come through the mass media, the family, peer groups, and other things. We need to tell people that politics is not dirty. If some people, the people that did not go to school, people who did not do anything, can go and sit down in political meetings every week and become something, you should also, with all of your education, you should be able to go sit down in these political parties and also fight tooth and nail to get something going. That's number one. Number two, like I said before, it is old people who tend to vote on election day. Young people play football all over the street in Lagos State. I cannot talk for other states, but for Lagos State, I know it very well. Ebute precisely. Young people are always playing football on the field. You should go and vote on election day. What do you have a PVC for if you cannot vote with your PVC? So that's another step I would put into this. Another thing he talked about system design. Yes, this system will continue to work not in our favor if we don't decide to join it and change it from within. We have to. We have to. You don't win election on Twitter. The people who vote are people. I know people when I was contesting for parliament in Oyo State. I know some of the women who vote at election. They walk 1 kilometer, 2 kilometers, 3 kilometers to come to political meetings. And we say we are educated, we are better than these people. We need to join this crop of people, go to meetings, be empowered, learn the political process, and join in every battle for the heart of our country. Because at the point where we are, at the point where we really are, we need to take back our country. And if we must do that, we have to join politics. And it's not for, I'm joining politics today for election of 2023. It might be for election of 2030 something or 2040 something. You have to go through the process. You don't just win election by wishing it. You have to work for it. Stephen, that's my take on that particular aspect.
Okay, thank you so much. While you were talking, a gentle comrade joined the conversation. Samuel Isiche. Samuel Isiche is an international relation analyst from the London School of Economics, and also is into government now. We know you know how Samuel and every one of us were dragging all over. Okay, he left. I hope he comes back in. So I wanted to ask a question from us as we round up this thought. I thought I wanted to take the question to Samuel before. As we round up this thought, according to Angela Ajodi, okay, Samuel is here back again. According to Angela Ajodo Adebanjoko, a writer in politics, she wrote that Nigerian youth are poor and lack the capacity to contest effectively in the Nigerian politics. How true do you think this is? You know, that's our own school of thought in terms of saying young people are poor and have lack of capacity in contesting for, for any political post in Nigeria. And for some of us who are here, I've seen few friends who are in government. Rabi was a member of the Nigerian Children's Parliament, all the political office in Kaduna right now. And I can mention names. Tolu Ogunlesi, who was in British Council, currently works in the essay to the president. And I can continue to mention names. Emmanuel Etim, who was in the African Union, is in politics in Cross River State right now. And I can mention Dayo Israel, who is effectively working and contesting as a national youth rep to the African political, I'm sorry, not African political, alliance, APC, let me use the word, APC, who is effectively contesting as a youth rep for the APC government. The question is, with this school of thought of this person, Samuel Isiche, are you there? Samuel,
Yes,
can you say something?
I'm here.
Okay. You are also in government right now.
Hear you.
Yeah, you are also in government right now.
I can hear you.
What is your school of thought? What exactly is your school of thought from what this Angela said in terms of young people lack the capacity to lead? Go ahead. Is Samuel there? Okay. I guess we didn't get Samuel there.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you clearly.
Okay, so so judging from my personal opinion, I honestly don't think that where we are right now as a country reflects the idea or the belief that young people don't have the capacity to lead. First of all, yes, I am a young person working in government, but also other than myself, I think if we use going by the Lagos example or this dispensation, we have a large number of young people in government doing wonderfully well. The Commissioner of Agriculture is a young person, Commissioner of Finance is a young person, Commissioner for Youth is a Commissioner for Energy is a young person. And everybody's under 40. I'm an SSA to the Special Advisor on Civic Engagement. So if you go by that yardstick, I don't think that saying that young people don't have the capacity to lead or to serve is completely true. It is not completely true. Yes, there are scenarios whereby, when we see our young people, I am of the opinion or the belief that, yes, they can do better with their life choices. We can do better by, I think that, let me cite a good example. A few months ago, I was at work and an issue came about, and the only thing I could tell my peers and my boss was that, it's not the fault of the person or persons who made this thing happen. It's our fault because we've allowed madmen into power, into politics for a very long period of time. And the lie or the excuse that they keep giving us is, young people are not ready to lead. So, and then we've bought that excuse for a very long time, that now we're almost singing that cross ourselves, that young people are not ready to lead. But when we look at what the young people have mentioned, just a few of them that have mentioned what they are doing in politics. Even Dare himself is a director in Sube right now. He's a national coordinator, national youth leader for the APC and all of that. And I think we are beginning to see that young people, even though they do have their shortcomings, because we might want to we want change at the snap of our fingers because we are young people, we have that energy. That does not mean to say that we don't have what it takes to lead. I think that is a huge fallacy because I see young people every day in government doing wonderfully well. I think that a large portion of solo administration, the back end staff of Mr. Governor's administration are filled with young people. Young people we are the ones who keep the machinery of government working. Not to brag, but I think that in this dispensation or in this government, most of the backroom staff, are young people. And what they've done, we've successfully conquered off the civil servants because we don't want to bite of the forbidden of that rotten tree, which is civil service. Not to say that there are not some good civil servants, but there are some good ones. But what they've done is that we've successfully, rendered most of them useless, and it is young people who are now keeping the machinery of government working. So if you go by that and we extrapolate further, then the myth that young people or the youth do not have what it takes to be involved in government is a lie. However, I think that my Egbon that spoke earlier, I can't remember his name right now, said
Mr.
a very
Waidi.
succinct, Egbon Waidi,
Dr. Waidi.
yeah, Egbon's not a doctor. Oh, Egbon's not a doctor. Dr. Waidi is the fact that for far too long, young people, we've treated our political space as a forbidden space, as a space where we cannot go and sit. Why? Because there are too many Agberos and too many Omontas. And it's okay, it's not a space where I belong. So therefore, we've left that space for them, and now we are beginning to suffer the consequences. So I think it's not a function of whether young people have the capacity to lead or not. I think the question is, are young people willing to enter into the political space, irrespective of whether there's an Agbero there or there's an Ntuliomo Junior there? And let's begin to make the change, because the truth is that the way democracy works, if we young people who have the energy, who have the intellect, do not become part of that process, then by virtue of necessity, they will pick out of the pool available. And where the pool available, the Agberos, Geomotas, they have educated ones, are the ones who now begin to lead us. And we see that. And I've been to rallies, I've been to, political meetings, and the crop of people available, oh my God, it's disheartening. Even though they are young people, but the crop of people available is very disheartening. And that is where we need to focus our attention on. The fact that we need to get more young people into the political space, directly, indirectly, begin to make things happen. These days, I don't think I'm still Agbo General, because now in government, literally all the old Agbos are also know my name. Yes, civic, you roll with them. You sit with them, you eat with them, and you realize that even these Agberos, these so-called area boys, they have what you call native intelligence. There was a day I was in the Commission of Agriculture's office, and I was talking with Mosho. It's what they call one of those state by bureaus, and the depth of his political intelligence, I and the commissioner were baffled. We were like this. We're literally, our mouth is open like, oh my God, Mosho, you know all of this. And he was speaking in Yoruba. Now imagine if I'm like, oh, Mosho's an Agbero, Mosho this one, I'm not willing to sit down and talk to him and begin to rub ideas and borrow from his political debt, because Mosho has been an Agbero since Tinubu's era. So he knows all the commissioners, he knows all the SSS, he knows the whole machinery of Alausa. And he has that intelligence that even me, I do not have. So I think the point I'm trying to drive home is that there's a need for more and more young people to get into the political space, because the truth is we have what it takes to lead, although we must be patient, because we are trying to bring about change does not mean that we can completely overhaul the political system. We must work with what we have and gradually begin to push for change. And I know that where we have a weakness as young people is because we are not that patient. We want change at the snap of our fingers. And if there's one that I keep saying to young people, I say, see, governance is very easy. It's not as difficult. But politicking is where the problem is. And we must learn to manage both, because if one side of the puzzle suffers, then the machinery of government will suffer. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Samuel. Thank you for that wealth of experience and wealth of knowledge you just dropped even with the short notice that I called you online, and you were here. I'm going to ask, this is the final thought from all of us, and this is the giveaway. This is a giveaway thoughts that I need to get from you. What's your final expectation from the 20, or what are your final expectation from the 2023 election? What are your final recommendations and your final thoughts from the 2023 election? I'm going to start from Dari as we round up to this program.
I didn't hear that too. I was still
supposed to give a rounding up contribution about what's your thought about the 2023 election.
Okay, I meant to give a thought. I didn't hear what is that, Steven? My thought about 2023 election?
Your thoughts and your recommendation for the 2023 elections. What are your roundup thoughts and your expectations from the 2023 elections?
The next president will come between the APC and the PDP. That's sacrosanct. Second of all,
so do you know what the candidate is? Do you have?
I don't know who the candidate is, because each party is still ringmaroling and quagmiring. And but let me tell you the beautiful thing about 2023. I told somebody in 2015 that the real election was going to be in 2023, and they asked me why. I said 2023 is going to be a decider year on many fronts. Now, this is the first time I'm going to talk about this publicly. Buhari is the last person from that generation to rule Nigeria. So let me give you a quick analysis about 2023. Buhari is the last person from that generation, and I'm sure you know what I mean by that generation, that will rule Nigeria. A lot of them are almost dead and quarter to go. Okay? Secondly, this is another analysis. I can say it in public now. With this, it doesn't matter. It's an analysis, so we can call names. Asiwaju Bola Ahmed Tinubu and Atiku Abubakar are the only frontliner politicians today who became popular pre-1999. Every other person became popular post-1999. What that says is that only Atiku and Tinubu are still connected to that generation. Anybody post-99 is like on a fresh slate, if you know what I mean. Doesn't mean they are perfect, but just means they became popular. Okay? Nobody knew Fayemi before 1999. Fayemi just came into. I can mention a dozen. Okay? What that says to you is that we must take this election serious. It's going to be a major transition election, and I believe it with all my heart. Not because of spiritual, that's there, but if you look at the indices, we need to put somebody.
Mr. Waidi, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
I guess they've trapped his network down. So so we hope we get it back because we're running up now. Yeah. Dari, maybe we hold your thoughts there. Let me have Mr. Waidi Gbenro, and then I take your final thoughts after Mr. Waidi.
Was it Samuel Isiche that joined us?
Yeah, it was Samuel Isiche.
Okay.
Yeah. Yes, I'm going to see you.
Yeah, it's you. Nice to hear your voice, and thank you for adding to what I said before. Like I said,
I know you're talking to a doctor.
I'm gradually becoming one. So, what I would say in closing is that for 2023, I would say something which might sound strange to everybody here, but I think that's the reality. Growing up through Nigeria and the voting process since I started voting, elections are getting better every year. There was some time that we vote the ballot boxes were being snatched in
We'll take you
Southwest.
back, Dari. We'll take you back, Dari. Just let him finish his analysis.
That
Okay,
ballot boxes were being snatched. People were intimidated at polling booths, and a lot of things used to happen. Physical things. Some of those things have already gone. It's getting better, but at a very slow pace. But like I said before, this 2020 election is for the forerunners, and we know who the forerunners are. I don't want to start mentioning names, and it's going to come like Dari said, from the ruling party or the major opposition party, except if something else that we don't think of happen, which I don't even think will happen. But at the end of the day, young people need to put their heel on the ground, join political parties, start changing the system from the inside, start pushing forward people they think can create change. And change will not be instantaneous. It will take time, like I said before. It might not be in 4 years, might not be in 8 years, might not even be in 12 years or even 20 years. But it's a process. And like we said, and you also mentioned, there are already young people. And like Samuel said, which I'm very happy about, Rabi Olowo, it's a guy it's our junior brother in Ebute Meta.
Kano Street.
Kanu Ojikutu Mosque. So these are people who, he was always a professional before he became into politics. But there was one thing everybody says in Ebute Meta, that he's always been political. Even though he was an accountant, he always had his eye that I want to get into politics. So even while he was being an accountant, he was walking around politicians, getting their trust. So that same guy, Rabi Olowo, is the commissioner for finance in Lagos? Yes. I have met him up to 2 or 3 times in his office.
Yes, the commissioner for finance.
I have met him once or twice in his office at Alausa. So I can understand what Samuel is saying. But in ending all of this, what I'm going to say is that young people nobody should tell you that politics is dirty game. If it is dirty, all of us grew up from the slums. Let us join them. Let us work our way up through that system and get into that place, which is number 1. Number 2, we should be patient. It's a system, and the way systems work, you have to work yourself into it and grow up gradually. Until when you get to a particular position, you don't even need to fight. It just enters, it just works seamlessly. That's the way it works. And 2023, get your PVC. If there's still time to do that, get it. And come out and vote. It's a process. Next time, you might not be voting. You might be the one contesting in an election. And another thing I would like to say, we got stuck in saying that people are contesting an election, people should join political party. Political participation is not only about voting and contesting in an election. It means you should be able to support people. You should be able to kind of vie for unelected positions like commissioner, super, and so on and so forth. And young people should try to get into this position. And we also forget something. Even positions like SUG positions, voluntary positions in community are also a way of working yourself up that system. People are no longer joining Boy Scout, Guest Guide, all these things where these are leadership training organizations that you have to work with. Volunteering for NGOs and so on. These are also leadership training processes that you need to join and work up the system. We need to get young people to do this so that in a gradual process, things just kind of seamlessly change. It's not a war. A revolution is a process of changing things gradually, not usually going to say older generation should get out, young people should come. Systems must work together in harmony to create a new one. Thank you. At least that's my own summation.
All right, thank you so much. Like Samuel to take his final thoughts, and then we'll take Dari complete his final thoughts.
Okay.
But before then, you can go. This is my current book, and there's another one coming out. It's called The In-Between Time. You can grab a copy of this book on Amazon. It's on Amazon. Just check for The In-Between Time on Amazon, and you can get a full grab of this book. It's being sold for a little change. You can get a full grab of the book on Amazon. And also for some of us who are joining us, please, you can check and you can support the project. The numbers are there if you have guests that you can need to recommend every Sunday to join us, or you want to partner with us on this program. You can do that by getting a number on the screen. If you want to support with your $1, $2, you get a Cash App and a Zelle details right below on the screen that's showing to you. And you can please join us every Sunday. Please join us every Sunday as we take up the conversation. So, Samuel, do you have a final thought as we round up to this program?
Okay, so my going to be very different election. Like Dr. Waidi said, since 1999, election has been getting more interesting and better. So, as young people, I'll say that it's just, I think it's important for us to understand that when it comes to politics, the rules of engagement are quite different from our everyday rules. It's a system. It has its own specific rules. It has its own specific rules of engagement. So, I think it's important that we familiarize with ourselves with that, with those rules, so that we don't begin to see politics as though it's a dirty man's game. I'm a saint, they are sinners. Yeah. So, secondly, it's important for us to get our PVCs. 2 months ago, I went to register for my PVC. I thought I was going to spend the whole day there. Luckily enough for me, I spent less than 30 minutes at Ikeja local government. It was super fast. So I think more young people go get your PVCs. We did NSAS. NSAS was fine, but that's not going to change any system. If we want to build change, we need to change the political process. What else? I think as young people also, we need to enter into the political system, support people, vie for elections, join political parties, make our voice heard. But less of being critical and less of cussing out people and doing our more. Understand that government is not perfect. And even if you and I became governors or presidents, we would still not be perfect. However, the question is, are we moving ahead? Do we have someone? So what I'm trying to say is that as we begin to look at our candidates, the question we should begin to ask ourselves is, did the desirable and the obtainable are two different things altogether? Yeah, so who do we know is going to take us further as a nation, not backwards, but further as a nation? And let's get involved in the process. Let's go, because the truth is, most of the time, voters' apathy is always high. This time around, please let us get our PVCs, go out and vote. Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Please get your PVC, go out and vote. Your Twitter will not count. Your Twitter activity or involvement,
Exactly.
or
Your
clubhouse
Twitter ranting
involvement
will
will not
not count.
count
It won't count.
during election. You're just making noise. So you're just going to be making noise on Twitter, making noise on Clubhouse. We have Clubhouse warriors. We have Twitter warriors. Please, the only warrior that you can use to activate your warriorism is go get your PVC. Dari, your final thought as we round up today's program.
Thank you very much. So, in as much as we think that people can do more, I still think these Twitter and Clubhouse platforms have their use. Okay. The challenge is just building concrete systems, translating these things from just World Wide Web into physical representations. I heard Doctor talk about how we have progressed from 1999, and I agree with him. That's why I tell people that Nigeria has progressed. They say, for what? Where? I said, Nigeria has progressed. We're now having intellectual conversations around certain things, even if you do not know. This is one very big advice I would like to give young people, and that's where I will end it. I think we need to start having more mobilization around salient issues in the environment and not just electioneering. So let me give you an instance. I want to start a campaign for all states to be able to generate their power. For instance, I want to create an initiative to push that idea out. So young people need to look for, I'm telling how we can do these things practically. We need to look at our societal structure and look at, so what are the issues that I can begin to mobilize around? I can begin to mobilize interest and effect around. That way you are building credibility, like Doctor has spoken about. You are building community reputation. You are building capacity, because driving an initiative, you are still engaging politicians who take notes, but you are not yet a politician, as the case may be. You can even be in a political party, but you are not running for office. But guess what? Go and look abroad and look at how most people become senators and House of Rep members. They will tell you they were community mobilizers. They will tell you they were director of something alliance. They were director of interfaith, because they moved from mobilizing on social issues and found their way into government. So if local government is not giving the practical tip, let people should organize around practical issues. Don't say you are organizing around Nigeria, wanting Nigeria to change. What do you mean by wanting Nigeria to change? What are the frameworks? What are the specifics? What are the pillars? Are you focusing on how more women, for instance, on something called electoral college? I like what they are doing, trying to allow more women get into politics. That's what their focus is on. Somebody's focus should be on maybe the National Orientation Agency. How do we begin to teach people? Okay, how do we convert these things to multiple languages? Don't sell your vote, get your PVC. That can be. So let's begin to look at all these pillars. I think that way we can begin to drive the transformation we're talking about. There's so much to talk about, but we have limited time. So thank you very much for this opportunity.
We will slate another very interesting conversation one of these days, and then we can also find a way of getting you. Thank you, Dr. Waidi Gbenro,
You're
for
welcome.
joining us this great afternoon. Thank you,
It's
Samuel,
my
for joining
pleasure.
us in the short period of time we called you. And thank you, Daria Akinlaja, for joining us on the show.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
The bold conversation with you, reaching live and direct from Baltimore City. We're streaming on YouTube, we're streaming on Facebook, we're streaming on LinkedIn. And I'd like to say thank you for all our partners. Thank you for all the people. Adinik Bekun, Miriam, Adikboju, who else? Thank you, everybody, Omotala Florence. Thank you, Omotala Ayodele, for also commenting and joining us on the conversation. We'll see you same time next week, Sunday. Please, if you know anybody you want to recommend to be on the show, please.
What's our topic for discussion for next week Sunday, so we can make the date?
Yeah, I will send it to you. So for some of you who are joining us, please you can add me up on WhatsApp on that number that is showing on the screen, and then we can put you on the Telegram group. Please, we would love to have you on the bold conversation next week Sunday, and so just let's have a conversation going next week Sunday. Thank you so much for joining us. I always end with this thought, which is the general thought that everybody in this room know, which has been my slogan for years. It means together we aspire, together we make great things happen. For we can, we will, we must. Thank you so much and enjoy the rest of your week. Thank you.
Thank you too.